right, so the last video is derivatives of inverse functions. We can kind of go through and do a proof and figure out what they all are, but I'm kind of just going to give you them, and these kind of just become like flashcard things where you just have to know what these derivatives are. You're not going to want to have to do them by hand every single time if they come up on the AP exam. Remembering how to do it by hand is going to be pretty challenging, and it's also going to take a lot longer. So just kind of write these down, put them on a set of flashcards so you can start remembering them. All right, but the original are sine and cosine. I think most of the time on the AP exam they use the inverse notation with a little -1. But arc sine and arc cosine are two ways of saying the same thing. Right, they're just the same as the inverse function of sine and cosine. And you can see the answers for the derivatives over here. Right, 1 over the square root of 1 minus x squared for sine. And the only difference between sine and cosine is that negative sign. All right, so again, just kind of something you have to memorize of what the derivative of this inverse trig function is going to be. All right, and the other 4 are similar. I have no idea how I ended up with a 1 minus here. This should be -1. All right, but again, luckily they're kind of similar, so it's really just 3 you have to remember, and then remember all the co-ones have an extra negative sign in front of it. So tangent's a little bit different, has a plus sign here, and cotangent, you just put the negative sign in front. Secant, it's really weird, you have this absolute value and this x squared minus 1 on here, but then cosecant, you just add the -1 in front. So again, not really too exciting. These are just kind of things you have to memorize. So now every single time you see derivative of tan inverse, you can just go directly to here. All right, so in class, we're going to practice some AP-style questions related to inverse functions. Again, in practice, in real life and stuff, you would know what the inverse function was or enough information about it to not have to use the inverse function theorem. But it is part of the AP curriculum, so you're going to have to know it. And there's those types of questions that we went over. They give you limited information, and you need to figure out the final answer. We're going to practice taking derivatives with inverse trig functions, because you can still do the quotient rule, product rule, chain rule, all that stuff with those inverse trig functions. And then we're going to prepare for our upcoming Unit 4 test. All right, so this is the last set of videos for Unit 4. About all these different derivatives rules, product, quotient, chain rule, and then this inverse function rule and implicit differentiation. All right, so a lot of just kind of derivative stuff all on this Unit 4 test.